Hi, we're back at the Digiday studio. I'm Michael Berge with Digiday here at Possible, and I'm very happy to have the chairman of Possible and a mastermind of this business, Michael Kassan. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Michael.
A year ago, you were here and about to announce 3CVentures, which was your new company. Tell us what it is and how you came about that name.
So, as I sat here with you last year, Michael, you asked me a question and I gave you a signal, but I
didn't pick up on it,
Yeah,
apparently.
no, you're pretty good at picking up signals generally,
Usually.
Michael. But I told you that I was keen on continuing to deliver a value to the industry that I care so much about, this industry. And I was looking forward to doing that through the lens of, as I said, the 3 C's: consulting, convening, and co-investing. And
right over my head.
The little story was, I was sitting with a good friend of mine, John Miller, who's a well-known bold-faced name in our industry. And John said to me, Michael, as you're contemplating this, what are you thinking? What do you want to do? He said, are you going to consult? And I said, yes. So he wrote down consult. He said, are you going to still do your events and CES and Cannes and Possible? And I said, yes. He said, so you're going to convene? I said, yeah. And then he said, you're still going to do M&A and diligence and investing and family office investing? I said, yes. He said, so you're going to co-invest? So he had written down consult, convene, and co-invest. And I said, bingo. I said, I think that could be a good name for a company, 3 C's.
3 C's, there you go. Beautiful.
And here we are a year later, and I'm happy to tell you it's been, thankfully, a pretty good run for us.
That's pretty excellent. Yeah, you're a year in. How have you seen the industry change in this year, in this new capacity? And I'd ask you that through the prism of really serious economic turmoil that we're feeling right now as a result of some administrative policies.
Well, there's a lot of things that have happened and transpired in this year, but if I look at this year and narrow it down to the last couple of months, I don't want this to sound like a political answer, but maybe the last 100 days being an apropos reference to the 100 days of the current administration. And again, no political aspirations here in this comment, but it's fair to say that there's a highest degree of uncertainty that I've seen in economic decision making since the early days of the pandemic. Because one of the most difficult things to deal with is uncertainty in financial markets, but also in the C-suite. As you're making decisions, uncertainty is a real problem. Ambiguity is a real problem. And that's where I think we are. And what I have heard, Michael, across the industry is those players who generally will say, in questionable economic times, we're big enough, we'll double down because we can gain market share and we can game the system a bit. If the other guys are leaning back, we can lean in. I'm not hearing that for the first time from the traditional double downers, if you will. And I don't mean downer in a...
like doubling down, like betting,
The traditional double downers are not, because the uncertainty is permeating so many different aspects of our life, economic, and the obvious issue about tariffs and what's that going to mean
and supply chain,
and supply chain and everything else. So when I talk about the interesting changes in the last year, Michael, I know I said to you a year ago, I remember this, that the configuration of the holding companies would be different 12 to 18 months from now. I said that sitting right here. And it's not that I was prescient, it was just that it was obvious to me.
That it was happening.
And it was happening, and obviously here we are a year later, and Omnicom and IPG, waiting to close, obviously, but the indications in the market are good that they will. And that's for sure. I'm going to make a prediction again that next year, God willing, we're back here, there'll be other changes in the configuration of the holding companies.
Any thoughts on how that might manifest?
The crystal ball doesn't allow me to have too much to share, but I would tell you that I just don't think it'll be the same. If you look at this and you presume the Omnicom IPG deal closes, you have one less holding company. I would suspect you'll have one less holding company in its current form a year from now. Or, again, 12 to 18 months.
Do you think we'll continue to see more mergers and acquisitions on that same tectonic level?
No.
Or will we see more consolidation underneath to try to reach that level?
I think we're going to see consolidation, Michael, because I've had this old-fashioned belief that if you can find a way to use the following 3 words in a sentence someone will make money if you use them in the right order. And I'd like to be that someone, just between us. If you use the words fragmentation, consolidation, and efficiency in the right order, money will be made. And what I mean by that is, if you find me a fragmented circumstance that can be made more efficient through consolidation, someone will make money. And the best example of that in our industry would have been screen advertising. If you didn't have National Cinemedia or Screen Vision, or if you didn't have rep firms in the media business, the fragmentation would make it very difficult to conduct business. Local cable, I mean, the interconnect with local cable, Michael, we've been both doing this stuff for a long time.
Yes.
So you know what I'm saying. If there wasn't a consolidation, the efficiency wouldn't exist.
Wouldn't be there.
I think there's areas like retail media, which is, in addition to creator economy, AI, the other drinking game in our industry of every sentence has to include these words.
Yes.
Where you take a drink, as drinking games go.
That's why I'm hammered all the time.
Exactly. Is retail media.
Yeah.
And that's an area where I think you will see consolidation because there's fragmentation, and it will make it more efficient. So another prediction I would give you, and I'm not here in the business of predicting, maybe.
But you have a pretty good track record.
But there'll be consolidation in the retail media space.
Well, there's more than 200 retail media networks out there. That's unsustainable.
And, you know, Michael, one of the funny statistics that we gleaned last year at another event in Cannes was it was the first time that somewhere near a third of the marketers who were on the ground in Cannes were not there just to show off the work. They were there to sell.
Yep.
Because so many of their companies now have retail media networks that the marketer is now not just marketing Netflix.
Right.
You know, I'm not picking on Marion,
Yeah.
but she's involved in Netflix actual hand-to-hand selling of ads. And so CMOs who are used to being at the top of the funnel and doing a marketing campaign of one-to-many are now sometimes in mano-a-mano selling.
Yeah.
And some of them are saying, gee, I'm not used to being a salesperson. And my joke has always been, well, wait, isn't the job of a marketer to sell things?
Yeah, exactly.
So
It
is this
should
an
come
uncomfortable?
naturally,
Is this an uncomfortable position? And I said, I bet the uncomfortable part of it is it's mano a mano. You're actually selling direct.
Yeah.
This is DTC.
It's right, and we know what happened with DTC. Let me ask you this: you've been chairman of Possible for a little while now.
3 years.
You've seen this thing grow. Oh, yeah, that's right. You were chairman from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Right. You've seen this thing grow. What is your take on how it's developed? I mean, 5,200 attendees. I think the Christian Mucha just stopped by and said 33% marketer or brand people, which is a rise up from years past.
Yeah.
How do you see it at this year and where it's going?
Let me say that I am extraordinarily proud to be part of the team that has made possible achieve something that many thought was impossible. And that is, and I'm using this term inartfully, but that is to become a thing. To become a thing is not easy. To become a regular cadence on people's calendar is not easy. To become a must-see TV, thank you NBC, is not easy. Possible in its third year, the numbers, as a lawyer I learned a little Latin, and there's a great Latin expression, res ipsa loquitur. It speaks for itself.
Oh, is that okay?
Okay.
I don't know my Latin, so thank you for
That's
translating.
about all I know. I went to public school. I didn't get Latin. My kids went to private school. They got Latin. I only learned a few words in law school.
Wait, you might know Veni Vidi Vici.
I know.
Okay.
I know
I got
about
you on
that.
that one.
I know that.
Yes.
That one I know for sure. But the idea of it is the numbers here speak for themselves.
Yeah.
To have 5,200 plus people says the answer to the question that you and I pondered last year, Michael, does the world need another conference? And my answer last year was yes. My answer this year is yes with an exclamation point.
Yeah, it's
because
kind of like, you betcha.
what has happened here is nothing short of extraordinary to have this impact. And you said something critically important. The problem or challenge with many conferences is you have too many sellers and not enough buyers. So the fact that a third of the participants here this year are buyers, that's a big win.
The ones with the money, that makes a big difference.
You know, I used to give Bob Leodis a shout out at the ANA Masters of Marketing Conference. I'm sure, Michael, you're familiar with who Willie Sutton was in history.
Yes.
Willie Sutton is the man who made that expression famous when they asked him why he robs banks. He says, because that's where the money is. Okay? I used to say the ANA Masters of Marketing was the Willie Sutton of conferences, because that's where the money was.
Yep.
Possible is making its way to a place where the money is.
Very interesting. Well, listen, without wanting to pick on A&A too much, let's wrap it up there. Michael, thank you for stopping by. Have a wonderful Possible, and we'll see you next year, right?
Michael, I always look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.